Okay, so good afternoon. I'm Anto Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live, something that we do every Monday afternoon as we try and figure out what the future lies for smart buildings. It's good to have you with us. If you're wondering who we are, profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. And also just a reminder, the views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. And let's make this interactive with comments and questions on the Zoom chat. If you want the slide deck, it is on mondaylive.org as well. So this being May, we have been getting back to basics all month, and we're going to continue that theme today. And our agenda is our normal news and trends chit chat, and then on the back to basics theme, we want to talk about basic readiness. Which we'll explore in a minute. So that should be interesting. But before that, I'm going to ask Ken to tell us what's going on in the world of HVAC and buildings.
Thank you very much. Lots going on, lots of things that we need to do for basic readiness. The first one up in the top left-hand corner there is we're all trying to learn all these new protocols, and I think it's good because it's not something that we all know or think we know. We need to do that. So diving into RDF and finding more about that, how it fits with the knowledge graph. I came across this other post that basically just outlines a bunch of IoT protocols. And I thought it was an interesting post. I reposted it, and lo and behold, I got about 1,300 people. So there's a whole bunch of people out there that are as confused as we are, which is good. The one below that is our summary of last week's Monday Live. What smart buildings must become before AI can do anything with them. And I think that feeds well into the readiness theme. Below that, we have 5 global trends reshaping building automation, why future-proofing the workforce can't wait. Johnson Controls, so leads to one of their white papers. They seem to understand conceptually what it is we're doing. Below that, the one Thomas did, when the network lies, push, pull, pause, BACnet, troubleshooting. And BACnet is becoming a much talked about topic on our site. Always gets lots of hit, lots of interest. It's really good to see it coming alive. And the one below that is the presentation that they put together at Vegas and for their 30th anniversary. And I think that kind of dawns on us in what we're working on here. We're working at fashioning standards and directions and stuff. And we see that folks like Jim have been doing this for 30 years, and Jim and Andy and myself even. So it takes a while, and it's good that we have a lot of those people here that can share the wisdom that they learned along the way. Next to that is the Niagara Summit, which is over. There's a good summary of it there. We had the C4SB town hall meeting. That was good. It was interesting. I learned a lot about the all of the groups. If you actually click on that icon, it actually takes you to C4SB and to the video of the first town hall, which was pleased to be part of. This was from one of our sponsors, the concept of moving the words BMS to building operating system. I think that's kind of a concept that is interesting. Building management systems, I guess that's what the M stood for. And, that wasn't really what they did. They were mostly about operations. And I think a lot of our agents are basically coming at it that same way, as we need to get more involved in the agencies. And then we went back a ways, and the API, which we've all been using a lot, why it's an essential piece of building automation. It still is. It's going to be the way the legacy systems are going to get linked, and it's becoming a much more important piece. I was surprised at the interest that article generated as well. And then right down at the absolute bottom, there's 2 things. Actually, that's a good one too. The BAS chooses us. So did you guys take the red pill or the blue pill? And I think it's interesting just to see everybody's story, how they got into the industry. And nobody ever wanted to do it. Like a guy like John Petsy, he was just there playing his drums, and all of a sudden something called to him, and he had to come. And everybody that's in the industry has got a story. But once you get in, and it becomes fascinating, and you can't leave. So if you've taken the red pill, you're with us. If you took the blue pill, you escaped. But it's BAS that chooses you. Back over on the bottom, the absolute bottom, well done, Thomas. So Thomas did a post, and he reminds us that we are the actuators of AI. And without AI, without us, AI doesn't do anything. And we are that actuation level, that sensor level. And he has some great posts that do that. And he just did one that just came online this morning. And it's all about commissioning. And I like it because we created this publication platform where people could rapidly express their opinions. And we have all these amazing contributing editors. And now the contributing editors are starting to actually read each other's posts and starting to interact with them, which was our intent from the beginning, is to become a discussion place where they could have these kinds of discussions, and we can watch what they're saying. So extremely pleased there that the automated buildings publication platform is working, and some of the things is the speed at which it can do. And I think the other thing is that what we're posting is often posted directly on LinkedIn or on the purposeful site for that, and the interchangeability of open systems. And in this case, it's all a common HTML, and we need to get from that. We have to forget about the print, and print is no longer a medium that we use. It's got to be an open protocol, IoT protocol. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. So yeah, you can check out, but you can't leave. You can never leave, right? Uh, so Rick, what's going on? C4SD. Have you checked out? Have you
Yeah.
left? Have you left your keys?
Yeah, most people know that, when I was 14 years old, I became addicted to X10 technology for controls, and I haven't been able to leave, I haven't been able to put it down since. And yeah, we're doomed, I guess, but we're gonna figure it out, right? C4SB, Ken stole the thunder, and my headline there of, if you go to the C4SB website, you can hit the link or you can go to Ken's website and hit the link and see the recording for the town hall. The town hall was, we talked about it again. We talked about it last week, just highlighting it again. It was like 12 or 14 people talking about the different working groups, the new and legacy working groups, and what's happening in the different groups. We will be starting to create an agenda for the next town hall, but in the meantime, we're also trying to get a list out of when the different working group sessions are, and trying to bring some organization to all the exciting stuff that's happening in C4SB. In the meantime, if you've got specific questions about any one of these working groups, or you want to participate, you can just shoot me an email, rick@c4sb.org. And we will talk more about what C4SB is doing as we get into this basics conversation.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anyone?
Yes. Yeah.
Go Steve. Go Steve.
So I was in Denver Wednesday through Friday attending the Controls Con event that Cochrane sponsors annually now. And I know Scott's involved with automated buildings. I think many of you know. But I thought was timely is what the theme of the event was, and it's what you probably would have guessed. AI was the theme. Okay, and so a number of the presentations were related to this topic that we continue to promote ourselves, and so the content varied by different participants. I thought it was interesting that Scott's son, I think it's Charles, I think it's his name. Anyway, he's now working for Code Labs,
Oh,
and Code has developed a commissioning app for using AI to basically automate the process for commissioning new projects. So it's able to go and look and suck in all of the point data essentially, and over a period of days determine whether the attached system is complying and operating per specifications. And I thought it was, at least on the surface, it appeared to be a very valuable application that would save field engineers a lot of time in terms of demonstrating that the system they put in is actually meeting spec. So it was I thought a very good example or useful use of AI, and to their credit. But overall, that was the theme, and so I would. To Ken, I'm not sure if there's any plans by Cochrane to do any reporting on the event, but it would kind of make sense if they did.
Yeah, we actually have a article from Stephen and Scott from the Niagara Framework Convention.
Yeah,
And
Niagara
that's
Summit.
there.
Yep.
And then the other thing that's timely is Thomas has just done another article, and it's on the front page. In the time just came on commissioning, and he's talking about the value of our other contributing editors and how they're putting that all together. So that's
Right.
a lot of information there. Commissioning seems to be an amazing application of this, and it probably is worthwhile one Monday discussing just commissioning
Right.
as part of our readiness.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, sure.
one other one, Anto, back to the whole, everybody's talking about AI. I'm actually on a panel this Wednesday with US Green Buildings Council. It's a webinar thing, and their title is aligning priorities for AI in existing buildings from hype to what matters. So, even when you're talking about the Green Buildings initiatives, they've also got a major focus on how AI is impacting the space. So seems like whichever direction you're coming from, right? Energy operations, commissioning, engineering, software, they all have an AI interest.
When is that webinar? Sorry, I missed the beginning.
This Wednesday.
So
Could you
do you have a link
send
you
the
can share?
link?
Yeah.
Send the link and I'll promote it for you.
It's
Sure.
a series,
Put
actually.
it in chat.
It's a series, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, assuming there's nothing else, let us
One
move
more
on.
thing.
Okay,
One more. Yeah, so working off what Anno said, there's another, it's a series at US Green Building Council, and we have one on AI readiness on June 7th, which is part of that series. And then this week, I'm going to be at the SimBuild conference, IBPSA, presenting the PAE building with Paristu, and the session title is "You Don't Design Net Zero, You Operate It." And that was the title that PAE put in, which is kind of a basic idea. We're not just designing, we're actually operating. So we're using the PAE building as that story. I'll put a link in, and I'll try and record it as well too and share it afterwards.
Super, thank you.
okay. Let us move on. So we are getting back to basics all this week, and just the journey that we've traveled from the beginning of the month. We talked about what was basic for each of us, and sort of a different range of anything from mechanical stuff to business stuff. That was interesting. Then we morphed into what is the new basic, because we are in the midst of a transition, midst of enormous change. So this is what came out. There's sort of a number of things that are sort of similar to the original basic, but sort of a new framing of it, which is in itself very interesting. And this week we're talking about basic readiness. So this was discussed in our planning call last Wednesday. Unfortunately, I was not on that call because I was overseas, so I didn't quite get all of the comments. But I'll just sit back and uh, enjoy the conversation. So, who wants to start?
I guess I have a quick comment. I missed the previous week, so I didn't know the context, but I see now in the #1 document, the context of the building is there. So that's good. Although it's kind of hidden if it's just document, but yeah, I guess it belongs there. But I think as far as basics go, we've seen this failure over and over again, where if you don't have basic context, and it sounds like a simple thing, but most owners just miss it for many reasons. Either they don't have the documentation, the latest documentation, there's conflicting documentation, or there's not even an awareness of how important it is to have just basic room numbers agreed on. So you can't point to a room and say there's a piece of equipment in this room. And that's been one of the biggest pain points for even the PAE process, where we spent a ton of time just asking questions where things are. Even though there's all these signals, just finding where they are, it's meaningless unless you can point to a place and say, this is the context. So we shouldn't, I think it's important to not diminish the importance of that. And everything else is important as well, too. It's just that the context, without the context, there's no way to analyze the meaning and the relationship to other things. That it's not just a single room, it's actually the relationship to the rest of the building. And there's also non-geometric aspects to it, too. Anyway, that's just
it's foundational.
Foundational, yeah. If you can't point to the map of where you are, you can't catch an Uber ride. If you can't point to a map and say where your system is, then it's just a signal without relationship.
Is there a word that we can give that so it can be a layer or a block?
Well, it's embedded in the document one, but I'm wondering, it almost, if it's foundational, it seems like it almost, well, I guess everything else is more about how things are connecting, right? So I don't know.
Oh, it's all relative. I mean, it's all important. And yeah, creating new terminology and new expectations of workflow is part of what we're doing here when we're talking about basic readiness. If everything was already basically ready, we wouldn't have to have this session.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's why we're having this session, is to identify the fact that things are not basically ready. They just aren't. And what Kimon just described of documents and floor plans and the lack of standardization around that and the lack of the ability to just pick it up and make it useful is kind of comical if you think about it for a minute. We all walk in and out of buildings all the time. Our careers are all tied to buildings all day, every day. And yet we just heard that the basics of like the room number from a document is not consistent. And that's actually kind of comical, which by then definition means that the temperature or the energy use for that space is also unknown. Because if you don't know where the space is, there's no way you can claim you know what the energy use for that space is. It's kind of comical. And that's what we're talking about in terms of just getting back to basics, is if you don't know, if you haven't established where something is happening, don't try and tell me that you understand what's happening. And that's what Kimon is saying in a nice way. And what we've realized at the PAE building is that they have these great plans and great diagrams, and we're able to like ingest those actually fairly quickly. But then it became a really interesting, fun puzzle to see all these conflicting or absent of context data streams and components and systems. And it really pointed out a very, very funny, embarrassing state of the art. And that's why this is kind of a fun session, is to say, okay, well, we jump right in and start talking about how we're going to save energy on something, but we haven't even established where it is or what or what area of a building that system is affecting. And therefore, oh, awesome, you're going to save 30%. Great. But where?
Yeah. And why are you saving 30%?
Yeah,
The other thing,
geotagging isn't enough though, is it? We need more information. We need more context than just geotagging. Is
yeah,
that?
It's not, it's just a start. That my point is that if you
Okay.
don't, and if you don't have the design document, you don't really know whether saving 30% is going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Mm.
You know, there is in that document, there is a CFM and a KW and a there's a whole bunch of expected design elements that are somewhere in this documentation, and we don't usually start with that. We just start with, okay, I'm here, I'm going to save you 30% energy, and that it just seems kind of absurd.
So when I read this, when I look at this slide, because I wasn't able to be on the Wednesday call, and I look at the first two, 1 and 2, document and then organize, okay? Which Kimon's arguing that's essential to do those two if you think you're going to do the rest of it in any kind of meaningful way, right? Okay. So to me, from an attitude standpoint, if you will, when you're running a business of any size, you have an accounting package, or else you can't run your business, right? You've got to have your income, your expenses, your cost of goods. You create accounts for all the different categories, right? And it's well understood, and it's not something you fail to maintain as a matter of course. Otherwise, you can't do your taxes. You can't pay your salaries, right? You can't run your business if you don't keep your accounting current. That attitude does not exist in our industry. That there's a comparative or an analogous type of system, if you will, to an accounting package that would provide the necessary documentation in an organized fashion that is maintained, if you will, religiously. So I know there's BIM at the design phase but does anybody really maintain BIM over time? Not that I'm aware of, okay? Maybe there are some exceptions, but how is there, when I'm just bringing up this subject that I just did, what comes to mind, and Kimon, with the project you've been working on, what's going to change in the PAE building that will enforce ready updates to your essential
yeah,
document database?
yeah. It has to be the owner that requires it. So there is one owner that I keep on referencing, the California community colleges, who do maintain an accurate space inventory, because it's tied to, if you don't give us your space inventory, you don't get any money, bond money for new construction or renovations. So the owner says you must have it. It's not perfect, but at least it's a baseline, and they've agreed on a room number for the 90 million square feet. And I think it's the only owner that I've run into at that scale that really maintains it, because every other owner has conflicting systems, GIS and CMS and IWMS, different versions of the digital twin that don't align.
Right.
So it's the owner doing that. The other thing is, I agree with the concept of document, because most buildings are just documents. In fact, you could take that document that's on the screen right now and create a BIM from it in a minutes, literally. You could just take it, suck it up, and you'll create a BIM. And that's a first version of it. And if that's all we have, that's a basic. We don't need the detailed BIM, which is where the confusion comes in. Who can maintain a BIM over time is because we've been sold on these Hollywood flashy digital twin BIMs that, yeah, obviously nobody can maintain it. And we need to kind of just be as clear as we can on that. That basic does not mean a 3D detailed model that you can fly through and create a gaming environment out of. It'd be great if you have it, but it's not the basic. The basic is that plan on the left turned into a BIM in minutes or seconds if you're using AI.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
then you
you
work
talk
with
about crawl, walk, run, right?
Mhm.
We don't even crawl.
Yeah, that's right. Because we're getting too noisy with we're building a rocket ship. We can't get
Right.
from across town unless we have a rocket ship. Well, we can't maintain that rocket ship,
Mhm.
of course. But if we get the basics, we need to learn how to crawl and walk. And there's a lot that can be done with what we have, I think.
Right.
I'm wondering, could there be a small block on top of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that would be context and location? Doesn't everything feed from context and location? And I think the other thing is that context is not a constant, it's a variable. Because what the building was originally designed for and what it is used for is a variable. So I'm wondering, and this is kind of a powerful graphic, but I'm wondering, what does everybody think about that? Having one more block on the top that would say context and location, or maybe context and location are 2 blocks on top of each
Yeah.
other. Maybe location is the most important thing, and then the context of its location. What's the thinking on that?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, the block sitting right there on that parking lot has a geospatial location. And having that information with all this other stack there starts giving you a minimum context even before you have the floor plan. You could say, we have a building here of some type in this geospatial location. Oh, we have a floor plan, 2D. Okay, let's create the basic BIM, the cloud BIM, as we're calling it.
It's
And then you
almost
organize.
it's almost level 0 is the
Yeah,
context. You got to
yeah,
start there. You have to
yeah,
understand what it is. I mean, you have to understand that it's this building as opposed to the one that's next door to it
exactly. Yeah,
before you can do anything, before you can talk about it.
yeah.
Right.
And that's how we normalize with the Coast Guard. They had 5 different databases. As soon as we put them in a geospatial location, we say, why there's 2 buildings stacked on top of each other here? Because they're the same building, but they didn't see it. So you have a pin on a map. If you have 2 pins in the same location, that's an issue. Then it gets resolved just with that initial pin.
I see that David Holmberg's on the call, and we've been doing some work, and it'll be announced. Some of the work of the digital building profiles working group will come to light, and part of what digital building profiles is doing is establishing. I don't see whether Wiltz is on here, but the digital building profile will sort of set some of the fundamentals in play, or put them in play of, here's some of the basics that should be known about a building, whether it's relative to just an existing building that they're thinking about doing a project, or whether it's a project that's underway. The digital building profile assessment and context setting will be hopefully a format that'll be useful for establishing sort of a gap analysis of, oh, wait, we forgot to find out where it is. That'll be a foundational thing about the digital building profiles.
I would imagine that what we're talking about in the context is very critical to what you guys do.
Yeah, I was going to focus in on that same point, right, about the documentation and the organization is one of our biggest challenges as well. I do like the whole concept about taking that stuff back to basics, right? I mean, the biggest challenge we've got, I can't remember who said it was that, not even knowing what room stuff is in is not unusual, right? And the reason, of course, is that the floor plans change often. It is easy to change floor plans and to make new rooms and have a tenant come in and stuff. But the question always comes, who's responsible for updating the documentations and saying what's where and stuff, right? Because the new tenant fit out's done by a new construction company who uses their own construction drawings and stuff, to do the new layouts. Sometimes they're not even a construction company. Sometimes they're just a fit out company or whatever. So, getting back to the basics is, I like that approach, right? Even with the documentation of what you've got. Don't have to overthink this. Don't try and apply BIM out of the box, right? Just find out what room it is and what VAV is associated to that room. So some of the basics is weirdly enough orders of magnitude more than what we're dealing with. And so then the other challenge we've got is, okay, if they don't exist or you can't get them or you can't get them easy, what's the best way to go and get that information? You can do it, on a go to each facility and start from scratch and check each floor and go from beginning to end, or you could do like sometimes what we do as our technicians and engineers go out there. Part of the exercise is to update data as you're working in the area or whatever else. It's not a trivial ask, to be honest, right? We say that, just go back to basics, find out what rooms does what VAVs. It's not a trivial ask, because then you've got to have what are the forms and the process and the procedures that you use to get that information, right? You just dump it in an Excel spreadsheet, and you go to BIM straight away. What's the format anyway? But to focus in on everything upstream adds to that detail. And if you don't have the floor plans and the understanding of what serves what, then none of the stuff north of that's the value diminishes very quickly. So yeah, I think it's a strong message about. I've seen too many folks come to us and go like, "Oh, I've got the latest drone technology that'll fly around your building and pick up all your rooms," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get it, but let's just get back to the basics."
Well, you said it could be a Excel spreadsheet, or it could be a whatever. It could be whatever. It could be and somebody just put it. Joel just put in the fact that they use Maximo at
Yeah.
Cornell, I think. And here's the cool thing is what I was going to get at is that when you start to organize it, no matter what you format you record it in, whether you use a piece of paper and you're just jotting it down, or whether you're using Excel or you're using a program like Maximo, we're getting to where all those different sources can be data can be extracted from them using AI. I mean, you could literally write in pencil of the different room numbers and take a picture of it and use AI to capture it. And that's the point about getting back to basics. It doesn't mean that you have to implement a massive new software architecture to to move the entire organization to. We can actually get back to basics in a kind of an ad hoc way. And that's one of the things we're showing about the PAE building is that you can add detail as you go if the systems have some level of and yeah, we're using knowledge graphs as the the center point to be able to bring the data back to. But you literally take a picture of a nameplate and use AI to suck in the nameplate data and then attach it to the knowledge graph. And then Kimon can see it and use it in his three-dimensional drawings. And so
you tie it back to the room number, actually, Rick. So if you scan it with AI and you say, I found an asset, what room is it in? It's a source of truth of here's a list of room numbers that this owner maintains, and that's a machine-readable format. So using the 1, 2, 3 level on the left, if it started from a document, you scan it, and all of a sudden you have room numbers. As soon as you have machine-readable data, that becomes a source of truth. Just park it on Google Sheets on the web somewhere or whatever with an API and say, this is my list of rooms. Every contract going forward, including somebody that comes and puts a new piece of equipment, must use this ID. Otherwise, they're going to come back with, well, here's a stack of PDFs with different room numbers. Then you have to hire somebody else to coordinate it. So it's really an owner-driven basic that the owner has to take ownership. And actually going off of what Joel just said about Maximo, if Maximo is the source of truth at Cornell, then Maximo should be publishing out an API and saying, here are the room numbers that everybody else must use, if that's the source of truth. What you can't do is have two different sources of truth and then do a new scan and say, I'm scanning new room numbers, and you have three different sources of truth. So as soon as you have the basic room numbers and the basic IDs of the assets, the owner must take ownership of that and park it in a place that makes it accessible in a machine-readable format and put it into contracts and say, going forward, everybody who does anything with my buildings and assets must use these IDs. These are placeholders in some case. If you want to update them, that's fine, but you have to park them back into the source. Otherwise, you immediately have fragmentation. And that includes all the fancy laser scanning and BIM and digital twins that are out there. They fragment immediately if you don't use that approach.
So, Kimon, if I hire an architect and I use an AIA contract to hire that architect, what documentation does that architectural firm owe me as the owner when this whole process gets underway?
If it's a BIM process, there's ways to write into the contract, whether it's AIA or not, that I want a building that's completed like we see on screen, and I want the associated data of a list of spaces, which there's a building smart standard called COBie. Give me the 1 through 100 spaces with the IDs and GUIDs, and then give me the assets in the building with the same unique IDs associated with those spaces. So there's a well-established standard already there. It's just not enforced or understood by owners enough. They think it's just and a mistake they make, they do it per project versus by portfolio level. So they do one project, do another project, different way of doing it. Then you have 100 projects, so you have to hire somebody to bring it back together again.
Right. So if we were to broaden the scope of that to standardizing the documents that we would ask for from a whole construction process, so starting with the design, starting with the general contracting, the subs, is there a way, because that's the way the world works right now, is through this construction process. Is there a way to define an outcome contractually up front?
Yes, we did it for the State Department. We put it in the contract and say, you're going to deliver assets with IDs that match the IDs that we want. And we're going to check it along the way. And this is not even, it's part of BIM, but you say the assets, and that's why the basics are spaces and assets with IDs. And the IDs have to match the BIM if you have a BIM, or if you're just a contractor that's walking in the building and adding another air handling unit, you're still going to use those IDs. So when the data comes back, you have a machine-readable format that can be brought back into the CMMS, IWMS systems.
So how do we get that? You've given a couple of examples of where it's happened. How do we spread that idea more broadly to contractually compel the construction value chain to give us what we need?
I think it has to go to the owner's contracting, whoever, like PA is a starting point, right? They're next time they come around, they know what to ask for.
We're not waiting for PAE to build a new building. PAE is helping, I'm obviously you're saying the same thing. It's like we're not waiting for PAE to build a new building. We're saying PAE is going to help show how it can be done with an existing building, and that's absolutely what we're doing. And it doesn't require waiting for a new construction project. It can happen at a maintenance event. It can happen at any time, and I wanted to. It can happen at any time where you can bring order to the chaos. And one of the cool things is because we now have interchangeable file formats, and we talked about turtle files for a little while. We've talked about RDF, and we've talked about knowledge graphs, and that's where I was kind of getting at, is like if you take a picture of a list of the rooms, you've got in a school, you've got Mrs. Johnson and my daughter, Mrs. Padrigi, and that you got the room numbers, and you've got the classes, and you've got this chart. You can take a picture of it, and you can save it as something that can be machine readable, and it could be a starting point. The point is, it doesn't have to be waiting for. You don't have to wait on Maximo. But the other thing I want to point out is, like, at Cornell, they use Maximo as the source of truth, and probably why not pick on IBM? It's kind of fun. Been doing it all my career. They at Maximo, they would probably like you to use a very proprietary naming format and a proprietary file format for saving all of that data. They probably like you to do that. And they probably don't mention you can also save the data in a very, very common open file format. And if I'm not wrong about this, you can also tell Autodesk Revit to save its file in either the proprietary format or in an open format file. And that's what we have to do. That's what we're trying to do with PAEs. We're trying to guide the owners, and PAE will help do this, to say, tell all your contractors to save their data in these file formats. And then AI has access to them and can normalize the hell out of them, which is really cool, as opposed to save it in a file format that requires you to license the product and have a paywall to be able to use.
Yeah, you don't even need AI for that because if you have machine readable data, we did this on the BIM storm, right? So we did it in 6 days. Like, can you take a RDF turtle file of the PA building, add something to it as KNX, and give it back to us in RDF? That's just a machine-to-machine transaction. So they maintain the IFC GUIDs, and we proved that it's possible. This was a 6-day exercise without ever calling and meeting, with never meeting them in person, never having a meeting, just saying, here's a file, add something to it, maintain the IDs, and give it back to us. That was it. Here's 1,000 things. You can add 100 things to it. If you have IDs that don't match, we're going to reject it. We're not even going to look at we're not going to AI or nothing. It's not going to be part of the conversation. And that's the automated process.
And the key thing, I'm just going to highlight it again, is that because we said save your work in a common file format.
Yep.
That's the key part of this, is that if you force the vendors to save their work in a common file format, you can open it up. You don't have to even use AI, to Kimon's point. You don't have to use AI to open an Excel file format, right? Well, there's the equivalent of XLS for all these different design documents as well, that the programs can save their work in. And it's like, it's so simple that it's almost
basic.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what's interesting about this whole month, is that if we really focus on, it's really not that complicated. We overcomplicate it by talking about all this other stuff that you can and do and everything, which is great. But if you break it down to the basics, it's really not that much there.
Tracy, how does this conversation align with your concept of basic and context and stuff?
I think it's really kind of fundamental, actually. If you don't know where the information is, if you don't know what it's referring to, I mean, it's an issue. We bump into it all the time, right? And the thing that I think, I don't know if anyone said this out loud, and maybe it's assumed, but the more time that passes, the worse things get, right? If you don't get that right up front and have a system and be systematic about it, it just drifts further and further away from the truth. So, when you're in a situation of retrofitting or going into an old existing building, it's a real problem, because that new wing was added on 10 years later, and those floors were all rebuilt out, and everything from the first floor to the third floor was completely repurposed 10 years ago, and you just get it all the time. So it's if we ever want to have and complete the vision of sort of what I think we would all describe in terms of a smart building that is living and maintained over time, you have to get this part right, or else you're in trouble. And yes, AI makes it a whole lot easier to onboard and accommodate stuff, but if you just do it right from the beginning, it's so much better.
But Tracy, my analogy to accounting, there's no one with any accountability, if you will, for doing that in any building, any real estate organization that I'm aware of. And yes, we can make it easier, but unless building owners, with the exception of that one that Kimon cited, if you don't keep up with it, it's going to fall apart over time. We all know that. We see it.
I love that. I love that analogy, actually. If there were a system that was taken as seriously and as consistently as your accounting system is for your business,
right,
you would have all of this stuff documented. Every change order, every new replacement part, and what model numbers are where, and this wall moved 10 feet over there to accommodate more cubicles or whatever.
Right.
All of that would be accommodated and accounted for.
There are some systems. I'm not gonna pick on Joel Bender too much, but I think that if you're using Maximo and you're using it right, you're using a CMMS right, or using an IWMS right, you do have all that capability. The IWMS becomes effectively the accounting system for the built environment of your campus. And I'm not putting words in Joel's mouth here, but that's if you use it the way IBM would like you to use it. And so there is such a thing in theory, and not that long ago, Autodesk tried to say that you could use Autodesk products as that building operating system for lifecycle, and they couldn't find anybody that wanted to do that, but they did propose it to an awful lot of people. So the concept has been out there. It just hasn't been a multi-vendor proposition. Go ahead.
Sorry, Rick, but to your point, right? And we find this often, right? Is that the work order system, whatever that is, for whatever the client or the customer is, and they all have different ones, tends to become the de facto asset list because that's also the system that you generate the work orders to do the work on the asset in the first place. So, and it makes a lot of sense, and we get that as well. But even that over time, to your point, right, and Joel's point, as long as you do it well and maintain it and keep it up to date, it's great. So one of the fascinating things I've always seen in that space is, and we were just literally talking about that this morning, we'll have a client who's used a system for quite some time, and to everyone's discussion, even in the work order system, if you're not maintaining it properly, it will go to crap pretty quick, right? And over time, it gets worse and worse and worse. And of course, in that market, work order systems, the market's saturated, right? Everybody has a work order system of any intent. Any buildings of any nature has a work order system of some nature. And so we find the smart building owners are using the change to a new system is the opportunity for, they make the statement for the incumbent to come in and redo all the data, right? Clean it all up. Do not just take a shift and dump approach. And so the smarter ones we're seeing, use that opportunity to actually do a complete cleanup of what they have on the process.
And then they repeat it again a few years later.
They repeat 3 years. 3 to 4 years seems to be the magic number.
I think the main thing is if it becomes a source of truth, whatever it is, whether it's IWMS or CMS, in addition to that, it has to be accessible to other systems, which is the weak point always too. Because if it's not accessible, then you're building a silo in real time, pretty much.
Which is I believe strongly that that data can be saved in a turtle file. It can be exported. And again, I'm going to pick on IBM, just going to make this up. They don't want to save the data in a turtle file, but they could if you told them they had to. And I totally believe that that's the case. It's like, just like with Revit, you can save the file in a proprietary format, or you can save it in an OpenUSD format. Either one, both are options. Kind of like when you save a spreadsheet, you can save it as this or you can save it as that. And if you tell Maximo that you need the data to be saved in an open format, they're going to whine and complain and kick and scream, but you will have just created a step towards an interoperable system.
Yeah, and to your point, Rick, we deal with them all, of course, and so they all have the ability, and if you don't, AI will do it for you, right? I mean, the database has the ability to take AI and do it. So technologically, it's not a challenge. It's really a management problem. It's really a contracting problem, and that's why we kind of counsel folks, do it when you change the work order system. Do it at that point and mandate that it shall be exportable, and put all the right words in at that point. Your work order folks will do whatever you want them to do because their market is challenging, right? Their market is saturated. It's like the cell phone market. The only way you're going to get new business is to steal it from someone else. So it's pretty competitive at that time.
I think the word should be exportable and connectable, because just exportable becomes a snapshot, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to have exportable in a turtle file in a static format, whatever, but also connectable, because if you can't connect to it live, then you're waiting for the next export and you get out of sync.
Yeah.
Can't we have a standard for this that some asset management group propagates, or our own standard, or That's typically how you prevent the walled garden from springing up. And it seems to me that this isn't even that hard. There aren't that many
It's not.
parameters we're talking about.
It's not
So
hard.
why not, Rick, why not just have C4SB come up with a standard and have people mandate it?
Well, but that's what we're trying to do with the digital building profiles working group, and with using PAE as sort of the guinea pig for guinea pigs and turtle files. That's oh my.
Well,
But absolutely, that's what we're not. We don't want to dictate that has to be the way, but we want to show that here's a way to move towards that, and here are the options.
Why not just dictate it?
yeah.
That's what I
I mean,
think.
it's just that the problem is that as a wise man once said that flexibility is the enemy of interoperability. You give people, a lot of ways to do things. That's a lot harder than just giving them one way. Frickin' do this, okay? Sorry.
Turtle file and APIs together. That's what we're doing right now with C4SB. Live to Skycentrics, whenever it's live, and we're talking with Tracy as well too. There's nothing magical about live connections as long as the source is open. If it's expensive to implement, not open format and a secret format, then it's hard to do it. If it's open and you have open connections, that's the only way to scale it.
Can API and Turtle be combined, or they
Yeah.
they have to be two files?
Yeah.
The API is basically saying use this turtle file. I mean, I'm greatly oversimplifying, but the cool thing is that everything from the geospatial information, so Jack Dangerman, that is Kimon's buddy, I guess, that is the ArcGIS Esri founder, all of that information is available turtle file. Design information can be saved in common formats, turtle file. So we're going through the list of all the basics, and we're saying here are, and again, David Holmberg and David Wiltz are leading the digital building profile effort, where I'm not doing a great job of describing how that will be articulated.
Yeah.
But the quicker we can do that, is Holmberg. I think Holmberg is like listening.
Yeah.
He's probably trying to drop off as quickly as possible.
But Rick, if it would seem to me that go ahead and down that path, but put those requirements in the Div 2525 document, so we have a way to communicate it out to engineers and owners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So David Wiltz is leading that, and Charlie Buscarino is going to help, and Pete Scanlon's helping, and Anto is trying to hide as well, but he's been helping, and David Holmberg is on the call, and they're forming this, and it's going to be an exciting. I think it'll be really helpful in that. I mean, it kind of gets into the weeds of these are the recommended, or these are file formats or serialization formats that would be recommended for this kind of system, and it could go as far as to make recommendations, to Jim's point. Jim, if you insist that we make recommendations.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, there's a what and the how, right? So the what data needs to be included, right? In the Div 2525, and the how is to our turtle files for now, right?
Yep.
So that's a known good, and it will allow us to move forward with something that we can hand to everybody, and they would know what they need to do and how it needs to show up.
Okay, so I think we need to start to wrap this, and I think we need to actually wrap the month, because next week is Memorial Day, so I don't think we're going to have a Monday Live. So anybody let's just talk about what we've accomplished this month on getting back to basics.
I'll take a rough cut on, not into the details, but conceptually, we started with the basic things that we need to have AI help us with these buildings, and we went way back, and the basic things are very, very basic, but there are some technology links that seem to me needed to flush out. Certainly the turtle file, we need to understand more what we can do with connection profiles. So we need when the basics meet some of these new technologies and buses and methods of expressing yourself, I think is important. So that's not the full summation, but that's sort of the big picture is, yes, we back to basics, but we need to build a bridge to how we're going to depict this in the future.
The fastest way to get there is to actually try it, like we did on the 6-day exercise. There's literally hours instead of talking about it. It's a duocracy thing. As soon as you try it, then you see it. And we can keep talking about this for another year and not get it right. The basics are basic. They're not that difficult to do unless you try it. Then, so I would really strongly recommend that we keep on going in the sandbox environment and testing it and say, well, here's what we have here. How do we write in the contract? That's really the only way to do it, I think.
How close are you to documenting that? So
we're posting it on GitHub as we're doing this, and I wrote the article on automated buildings, and we have the actual files, the turtle files. We have the turtle. It's not only turtle files. There's turtle files. There's Excel files. There's a full-blown Revit model. There's a Cloud BIM version. There's an API. So there's all kind of touch points. We want to make it as simple as possible as anybody else to interact. And then one.
And that effort of actually showing here's how you can use some of it is complementary to what I'm describing that Wiltz and Holmberg and so and others are doing, the digital building profile sort of generic format of cataloging the different things that are available for a specific building. So there's going to be a generic format, and then there's these sandboxes to go start using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Anto challenged us with next month, and so does next month roll into taking the basic to the weeds?
We've not discussed that, and we'll discuss it on our planning call. But obviously we're on a sort of very interesting path. Anyone else have a thought about what we've achieved this month? Jim or Tracy?
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes to mind for me is with things moving as fast as they are, with AI becoming more and more powerful in its ability to integrate and pick up old information and assimilate old data. I think it's important for us to remember that getting the basic fundamental block and tackling right done, is really important, get that done right. So I think it's good to remember that part of it. And it was a good review this month to really pull out and illustrate the importance and what those basics are and why they're important. So I'm happy we had this focus.
Yeah, so as we live in this accelerated world, everything is accelerated, even the good stuff and the bad stuff. So something that's bad will actually get badder and badder. That's bad grammar.
Yep.
I know you want to chime in something?
No, to Tracy's point, I think just for us to rethink the basics, right? Well, the basics and sticking on the basics. The challenge we've always got is, oh, it's great, what am I going to do about it as a result? What's going to be different? My message has always been, don't come at me with your drone capabilities that can fly indoor and take the light numbers. Like, give me the basics, right? What do we solve? What can I solve right now?
Kiss.
Yep.
Kiss.
Kiss.
Jim, any final words, Jim?
No, I think everybody else nailed it already. Thanks very much.
Okay, so let us wrap this show. We won't be around next week, so we'll see everyone in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Have a good one.
So, bye-bye all.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.